Monday, November 16th. News time. For this edition of My News Radar, we're only going to really talk about like two things, but we're going to kind of deep dive into both of them more than I usually do on this kind of more rapid fire show. So news story number one that we have to dig into first and foremost quickly, because it's the one that I think most of my subscribers would like to hear me talk about, is revolving around the Surface Duo. We just got the November update. It just launched here just the other day. I've already posted a video of some camera samples. TLDR, the camera is a lot better. Go hit my Twitter account at ScaryIfLiteral. I tweeted out a whole thread of comparisons from this compared to the Pixel 3, which is out of my reach, as well as more samples as the sun went down. So there's a whole bunch of photo samples on the Twitter, as well as a video breaking down some of those photo samples on the YouTube channel. But as a bigger whole, what does this mean? So the Surface Duo is obviously running Android, and it is on a monthly update schedule. So we basically expect to get a new update once a month. We got our October update, we got our November update. So 2 months, 2 updates. So what was promised on this update in particular? Let's jump over here to Microsoft's website. And we have here, this is what it is, 2020, 10, 14, 61, that's the number. This update, 1, addresses scenarios outlined in the Android security bulletin. So this is a security update. 2, refines camera image quality. And I think that if you look at my tweets, look at the video, I think that that is bearing out. The camera does seem to launch quicker, seems to be more stable, seems to take photos more quickly, and seems to take considerably better photos than it did before. Step in the right direction. This thing is never going to be a phenomenal camera, but it can be better, and it's already improved pretty dramatically, in particular in low light. Low light is still bad. It was absolute horrendous horror show nightmare. Now it's only bad. So it's a step in that direction. And in good daylight, I got some really surprisingly good photos out of it. Big improvement. Okay, so what's next? Improve moving or dismissing of apps when spanned across both screens. So what they're talking about here is basically the scenario where you have an app that is, like it says, spanned across both screens, and you want to dismiss that app. Apparently there was some bugginess for some people before. It seems to be working, pretty well for me. I'm not having any issues before, not having any issues after. Take that for what it is. Improves touch stability and then improves device stability. Now, both of these things are really important because for anybody that has talked about the Surface Duo over, the last 2 months, one of the biggest problems people have is with touch stability, with things essentially just the gestures just not working as you would expect for them to work, dismissing apps, just not working quite correctly. And now after this update, things do seem to be working much more consistently than maybe they were before. I'm not having nearly as many instances of gestures missed, back gestures not working. All that stuff seems to be working pretty well. In some apps like Twitter, if I brought up a full screen image, sometimes when I would try and swipe to go back, it just would ignore that touch. That seems to be resolved, and that, maybe that was just me having that problem, I don't know, but it seems to be resolved. So without, sitting here and taking 15 minutes to really break down what I think, and it's really only been a couple of days, the device does in fact feel more stable, more predictable, and smoother than it did before. Now, there are still some problems here. I mean, you may have saw in this when I was holding it here, just like you just saw there, when I went to go home, when I went to dismiss that, the animation kind of stopped halfway through and then went away. There's still problems with the Duo, all right? There are still little hitches here and there, but that is not a deal breaker. That's like a millisecond delay before it goes home, and you could go into your developer options and just disable animations altogether, and that's not going to happen anymore. But the likelihood of having missed gestures, touch, accidentally thinking you long pressed or something, that stuff seems to be all but gone. I also haven't had that weird issue where in the past, it just wouldn't accept any touch input until I had to lock it and then unlock it again. That seems to be gone for me as well. So overall, a really good update. I think that it's something that definitely is moving in the right direction. I think we're going to be really excited to see what comes each month. I think for me, the biggest thing though has to be that camera. If we jump over to the Surface Duo subreddit, so you know that it's not just me talking out of my behind, some of the posts on here: snappier performance, noticing much better notification shade links. That is actually a really good point, because one of the things it reminds me of is I would always have, not always, but every now and again, I would have issues and I was trying to swipe down to bring down the notifications. And instead I would get the search, when you swipe down on the launcher, you get the search. Well, that seems to be much more consistently getting me my notification shade instead of the search. So that seems to be better. He seems to be talking about clicking on a link in the notification shade being more accurate. Not a problem I really had. Glad it seems to be resolved for him. Here's a good point. AT&T people, yeah, you're probably going to be about a week or two out. That's what happened last time. It'll happen again this time. There's my post asking if I was crazy about the camera performance, and everyone that responded seemed to agree that yes, it does seem to be performing better. Here's another, another notification shade improvement coming from this person. Overall, phone feels more stable, seems faster. Camera's much better with detecting which screen it's on. Orientation, I've heard talked about as well. Dismissing apps seems much faster. I'm not seeing a different animation on mine. All in all, seems like everybody's in pretty well agreement. Pretty good update. Lots of good stuff coming. So stay tuned for more Surface Duo coverage, obviously. So obviously the biggest news right now is that there is a new console generation being kicked off with the PS5 and the Xbox Series X and S. Well, apparently Microsoft enjoyed a pretty good launch, even though it appeared early on that PlayStation was going to have a pretty big momentum lead. I still think that they'll probably sell far more consoles than Xbox does, but nonetheless, Xbox has a blog post out right now where they say this is the biggest launch in Xbox history, all thanks to you. If you bought an Xbox Series, whatever, they're thanking you there. Now, what does this mean? Biggest console launch in history, in Xbox history? Does that mean that they sold the most consoles, that they made the most money? Usually that's kind of a vague thing to say. But if you scroll down here, they say more new consoles sold than any prior generation, with the Xbox Series S adding the highest percentage of new players for any Xbox console at launch. So that's actually really impressive to hear that, obviously the original Xbox was not a huge launch because it was their first foray in. No one really knew what it was going to be like. Xbox 360 was big. Xbox One was pretty big, but they kind of shot themselves in the foot heading into the launch. Xbox Series X and S seem to be on the right trajectory, and the Series S adding the most new players at that low price point is pretty cool. Now, these guys are going to need to upgrade their storage probably sooner than later, but, whatever. Really cool to see so many people buying a cheaper console, a console that fits them better. Love seeing cheaper consoles for people that need that. Then they say more games played, 3,594 in total, spanning 4 generations, setting the record for most games ever played during a console launch. Now, that's kind of cool, but also, you can play games from 4 generations. People own games from 4 generations, and they're going to be trying them out, seeing what auto HDR looks like, seeing what the higher frame rate looks like. Cool that they're doing it. Cool that it's there. Not super shocking. This one here is maybe the biggest thing in this article. Next gen means more ways to play. Next gen means more ways to discover and play. 70% of new Series X and S consoles are attached to new and existing Xbox Game Pass members. That is huge. So 7 out of 10 people that bought a new Xbox have Xbox Game Pass, and we know that Microsoft is trying to turn into a software service subscription company. They're not going to live and die by their console sales. They don't care if you buy an Xbox. They care that you have Game Pass. I don't own an Xbox. I have Game Pass. That's what they're after. And for 7 out of 10 to have Game Pass, they've got to be feeling really good about that. And honestly, if you own a console, you're kind of maybe you're kind of crazy to not to have Game Pass, because Ultimate has your Xbox Live subscription in there too, and you get all these access to all these games, and you get access to streaming to your Android device, and you get access to streaming to your Android set-top box if you want to do that as well. So guys, kind of a light news cycle right now. Maybe there will be more things going on before the next episode, which will drop on Wednesday as usual. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays for new episodes of News Radar. So stay tuned for that. And until next time, stay nerdy, my friends. If you enjoy my content, please consider becoming a Scary If Literal member. you'll get access to a whole bunch of emoticons to use with live streams and a shout out on an upcoming video. Thanks as always for your continued support.